president who supported the war have already issued statements saying they joined the president in praising the troops. But Dick Gephardt, for example, Democrat of Missouri, in his statement also said the president can't do two things at once. Yes, he won the war in Iraq, but in Congressman Gephardt's view, he's losing the war to get the economy back on track here at home. The president will walk by a banner, we are told, that says mission accomplished. That I find most noteworthy as we look to the political debate tomorrow and in the weeks to come. Some will seize on that sign and say, if the mission is accomplished, where is Saddam Hussein? Where are the weapons of mass destruction?
And finally tonight, talk about the twin audiences that the president is trying to reach. You talked a little bit about what he's trying to convey with the power of this military symbolism.
He needs to convince the American people, as they see these powerful pictures, these sailors coming home, hugging their wives, seeing their parents, seeing their children, including on this ship alone, I believe some 100 children who were born while these men and women were out at sea. The president needs to convince the American people, yes, some are coming home, but some must stay. It is a critical mission. They have to stay in Iraq. And the president wants to convince the world that he means it when he says it, that if you harbor a terrorist, if you support a terrorist groups, if you are against the United States, as he will put it, that he's not afraid to do this again.
John King, thanks so much. We're going to leave it there with you. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We appreciate you all joining us. The president's speech is going to get underway shortly. Larry King Live starts right now.
Thank you, Paula. We will, of course, take you right to the president's speech aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. Following the speech, we'll have special guests to discuss the speech. They'll include Bob Schieffer of CBS News. He'll be with us throughout, as will Senator John Warner, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Congressman Christopher Shays, Congresswoman Jane Harman, and then later we'll get an overseas view from Matt McAllister, Christiane Amanpour, and Nick Robertson. The president's speech, Larry King Live follows the speech, and right now we turn it over to my colleague, Aaron Brown. Aaron?
Larry, thank you, and good evening again, everyone. The president speaks in just exactly a minute from now aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. As you can see, sailors have lined the decks, the flight decks of the giant aircraft carrier. 5,000 sailors on board, plus much of the president's national security team. The president landed in a plane on the aircraft carrier, not by helicopter. The first sitting president to ever do such a thing. It is, in some ways, the ultimate photo opportunity. Certainly something that will be seen again and again in political commercials next year. But this is not simply about politics tonight. The president will declare combat has come to an end, though he will not say that legally the war has come to an end. That is a complicated legal question that requires much from the U.S. government once it formally ends the war, and the president isn't prepared to do that. The president will thank the soldiers and sailors and Marines who fought in the war and talk about the war on terrorism as well. The president begins speaking shortly from the USS Abraham Lincoln.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Be seated, please. Thank you. Thank you all very much, Admiral Kelly, Captain Card, officers and sailors of the USS Abraham Lincoln, my fellow Americans. Major combat operations in Iraq have ended. In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed. And now our coalition is engaged in securing and reconstructing that country. In this battle, we have fought for the cause of liberty and for the peace of the world. Our nation and our coalition are proud of this accomplishment. Yet it is you, the members of the United States military, who achieved it. Your courage, your willingness to face danger for your country and for each other made this day possible. Because of you, our nation is more secure. Because of you, the tyrant has fallen and Iraq is free. Operation Iraqi Freedom was carried out with a combination of precision and speed and boldness the enemy did not expect and the world had not seen before. From distant bases or ships at sea, we sent planes and missiles that could destroy an enemy division or strike a single bunker. Marines and soldiers charged to Baghdad across 350 miles of hostile ground in one of the swiftest advances of heavy arms in history. You have shown the world the skill and the might of the American Armed Forces. This nation thanks all the members of our coalition who joined in a noble cause. We thank the Armed Forces of the United Kingdom, Australia, and Poland, who shared in the hardships of war. We thank all the citizens of Iraq who welcomed our troops and joined in the liberation of their own country. And tonight, I have a special word for Secretary Rumsfeld, for General Franks, and for all the men and women who wear the uniform of the United States. America is grateful for a job well done. The character of our military through history, the daring of Normandy, the fierce courage of Iwo Jima, the decency and idealism that turned enemies into allies is fully present in this generation. When Iraqi civilians looked into the faces of our servicemen and women, they saw strength and kindness and goodwill. When I look at the members of the United States military, I see the best of our country, and I'm honored to be your Commander-in-Chief. In the images of fallen statues, we have witnessed the arrival of a new era. For 100 years of war, culminating in the nuclear age, military technology was designed and deployed to inflict casualties on an ever-growing scale. In defeating Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, Allied forces destroyed entire cities, while enemy leaders who started the conflict were safe until the final days. Military power was used to end a regime by breaking a nation. Today, we have the greater power to free a nation by breaking a dangerous and aggressive regime. With new tactics and precision weapons, we can achieve military objectives without directing violence against civilians. No device of man can remove the tragedy from war. Yet it is a great advance when the guilty have far more to fear from war than the innocent. in the images of celebrating Iraqis, we have also seen the ageless appeal of human freedom. Decades of lies and intimidation could not make the Iraqi people love their oppressors or desire their own enslavement. Men and women in every culture need liberty like they need food and water and air. Everywhere that freedom arrives, humanity rejoices. And everywhere that freedom stirs, let tyrants fear. We have difficult work to do in Iraq. We're bringing order to parts of that country that remain dangerous. We're pursuing and finding leaders of the old regime who will be held to account for their crimes. We've begun the search for hidden chemical and biological weapons and already know of hundreds of sites that will be investigated. We're helping to rebuild Iraq, where the dictator built palaces for himself instead of hospitals and schools. And we will stand with the new leaders of Iraq as they establish a government of, by, and for the Iraqi people. The transition from dictatorship to democracy will take time, but it is worth every effort. Our coalition will stay until our work is done, and then we will leave, and we will leave behind a free Iraq. The Battle of Iraq is one victory in a war on terror that began on September the 11th, 2001, and still goes on. That terrible morning, 19 evil men, the shock troops of a hateful ideology, gave America and the civilized world a glimpse of their ambitions. They imagined, in the words of one terrorist, that September the 11th would be the beginning of the end of America. By seeking to turn our cities into killing fields, terrorists and their allies believed they could destroy this nation's resolve and force our retreat from the world. They have failed. In the Battle of Afghanistan, we destroyed the Taliban, many terrorists, and the camps where they trained. We continue to help the Afghan people lay roads, restore hospitals, and educate all of their children. Yet we also have dangerous work to complete. As I speak, a Special Operations Task Force led by the 82nd Airborne is on the trail of the terrorists and those who seek to undermine the free government of Afghanistan. America and our coalition will finish what we have begun. From Pakistan to the Philippines to the Horn of Africa, we are hunting down al-Qaeda killers. 19 months ago, I pledged that the terrorists would not escape the patient justice of the United States. And as of tonight, nearly one-half of al-Qaeda's senior operatives have been captured or killed. The liberation of Iraq is a crucial advance in the campaign against terror. We've removed an ally of al-Qaeda and cut off a source of terrorist funding. And this much is certain. No terrorist network will gain weapons of mass destruction from the Iraqi regime, because the regime is no more. In these 19 months that changed the world, our actions have been focused and deliberate and proportionate to the offense. We have not forgotten the victims of September the 11th, the last phone calls, the cold murder of children, the searches in the rubble. With those attacks, the terrorists and their supporters declared war on the United States. And war is what they got. Our war against terror is proceeding according to the principles that I have made clear to all. Any person involved in committing or planning terrorist attacks against the American people becomes an enemy of this country and a target of American justice. Any person, organization, or government that supports, protects, or harbors terrorists is complicit in the murder of the innocent and equally guilty of terrorist crimes. Any outlaw regime that has ties to terrorist groups and seeks or possesses weapons of mass destruction is a grave danger to the civilized world and will be confronted. And anyone in the world, including the Arab world, who works and sacrifices for freedom, has a loyal friend in the United States of America. Our commitment to liberty is America's tradition, declared at our founding, affirmed in Franklin Roosevelt's Four Freedoms, asserted in the Truman Doctrine and in Ronald Reagan's challenge to an evil empire. We are committed to freedom in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and in a peaceful Palestine. The advance of freedom is the surest strategy to undermine the appeal of terror in the world. Where freedom takes hold, hatred gives way to hope. When freedom takes hold, men and women turn to the peaceful pursuit of a better life. American values and American interests lead in the same direction. We stand for human liberty. The United States upholds these principles of security and freedom in many ways, with all the tools of diplomacy, law enforcement, intelligence, and finance. We are working with a broad coalition of nations that understand the threat and our shared responsibility to meet it. The use of force has been and remains our last resort. Yet all can know, friend and foe alike, that our nation has a mission. We will answer threats to our security, and we will defend the peace. Our mission continues. Al-Qaeda is wounded, not destroyed. The scattered cells of the terrorist network still operate in many nations, and we know from daily intelligence that they continue to plot against free people. The proliferation of deadly weapons remains a serious danger. The enemies of freedom are not idle, and neither are we. Our government has taken unprecedented measures to defend the homeland, and we will continue to hunt down the enemy before he can strike. The war on terror is not over, yet it is not endless. We do not know the day of final victory, but we have seen the turning of the tide. No act of the terrorists will change our purpose, or weaken our resolve, or alter their fate. Their cause is lost. Free nations will press on to victory. Other nations in history have fought in foreign lands and remain to occupy and exploit. Americans, following a battle, want nothing more than to return home, and that is your direction tonight. After service in the Afghan and Iraqi theaters of war, after 100,000 miles on the longest carrier deployment in recent history, you are homeward bound. Some of you will see new family members for the first time. 150 babies were born while their fathers were on the Lincoln. Your families are proud of you, and your nation will welcome you. We are mindful as well that some good men and women are not making the journey home. One of those who fell, Corporal Jason Melillo, spoke to his parents 5 days before his death. Jason's father said he called us from the center of Baghdad, not to brag, but to tell us he loved us. Our son was a soldier. Every name, every life is a loss to our military, to our nation, and to the loved ones who grieve. There's no homecoming for these families. Yet we pray in God's time their reunion will come. Those we lost were last seen on duty. Their final act on this earth was to fight a great evil and bring liberty to others. All of you, all in this generation of our military, have taken up the highest calling of history. You are defending your country and protecting the innocent from harm. And wherever you go, you carry a message of hope, a message that is ancient and ever new. In the words of the prophet Isaiah, to the captives come out, and to those in darkness be free. Thank you for serving our country and our cause. May God bless you all, and may God continue to bless America.
President George W. Bush aboard the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, about 80 miles off the coast and heading home, as he said in what was the biggest applause of the 25-minute speech. The president said, "We have difficult work to do in Iraq. We are bringing order to parts of that country that remain dangerous. Our coalition will stay until the work is done, and then we will leave a free Iraq." The president tied this all very directly to the attacks on the country of September 11th in 2001. Our senior White House correspondent, John King, is with us at the White House. John, the president referred twice in the speech to weapons of mass destruction. How sensitive is the White House to the fact that none has been found yet?
Well, quite sensitive, and you heard the president say he's confident they will be found, that hundreds of sites are being looked at. That's one reason I was a bit surprised to see that banner, "Mission Accomplished," up there. The White House understands how closely this speech is being looked at from a political standpoint, and one could easily make the case that that mission has not been accomplished. The weapons of mass destruction have not been located. The central reason that the president went to war has not been proven, if you will. Mr. Bush, though, deciding he needed to give this speech, you heard the cheers when he said, "You're heading home." One of the challenges for the president is to convince the American people, as these thousands come home, that tens of thousands must stay behind for 2, 3, 4 years. I'll tell you, Aaron, what struck me most, though, if you think about the moment, Secretary of State Colin Powell is about to go to Damascus. The president says Syria is supporting terrorism in the Palestinian territories against Israel and elsewhere. Standing on the deck of an aircraft carrier, the president says any outlaw regime that has ties to terrorist groups and seeks or possesses weapons of mass destruction is a grave danger to the civilized world and will be confronted. The president on an aircraft carrier speaking to the world just before his Secretary of State goes to Syria. A powerful message from this president. The war in Afghanistan and in Iraq, combat is over. The war on terrorism, still a lot to be done.
John, thank you. We'll have more from you tonight on Newsnight 10 o'clock. We'll have more on the president's speech, reaction to it, as well as will Larry King, which is coming up next. We'll see you again at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Until then, I'm Aaron Brown. Larry King Live is next.
Thank you, Aaron. With us in our studios in Washington, D.C., following this historic occasion, is Bob Schieffer, the anchor of CBS News Face the Nation, CBS News chief Washington correspondent, author of a terrific New York Times bestseller called This Just In. Senator John Warner, Republican of Virginia, how proud he must have felt tonight. Former Secretary of the Navy, veteran of both the U.S. Navy and U.S. Marine Corps. Warner, in fact, experienced a number of carrier landings himself while Undersecretary and Secretary of the Navy. And Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat of California, member of the Select Committee on Intelligence. Bob Schieffer, what's your critical analysis of this speech, how it was delivered, how it was received?
Well, I must say, Larry, as I watched the president tonight, what I thought about was Ronald Reagan, who was known as the great communicator. And Ronald Reagan understood that it's not just the words you say that you use to communicate. You use where you say it, how you say it, the background around you. And we saw some very powerful pictures tonight. My sense of it is we'll remember these pictures a lot longer than we'll remember the words that the president said tonight. But having said that, I thought it was a very powerful message that he did deliver.
Senator Warner, what's your reaction?
Larry, it was a moment in history, a moment richly deserved by a courageous president who made the toughest decision any president has to make, send men and women into harm's way. to sit there and be concerned night and day, 7 days a week, about the welfare of those he sent and their families here at home. But he struck a note of humility today, not taking the credit himself, but giving it to the men and women of the armed forces and many others who brought about the success to date, and which enabled him to say that most of the major combat now has come to an end. And we're on the course to turn that nation over eventually to a free people of Iraq.
Senator Feinstein, Yogi says it ain't over till it's over. Is it over, or is it not over until they find weapons of mass destruction?
Well, let me answer it this way. First of all, Senator Warner and I were on your show, Larry, when the war began. And I was thinking that as the president spoke and realizing, you know, the happiness that I felt as opposed to the anxiety when we were here before. The speech was a 10 strike. I'm one that believes the hard work is yet to come. And I thought there was some good news in the show. Aaron Brown mentioned it. And it is this quote: "Our coalition will stay until the job is done. Then we will leave, and we will leave behind a free Iraq." That's a very big order, securing the country, rebuilding it, getting its economy going, providing the humanitarian assistance, and providing a stable, free, and transparent government that is for and by Iraqis. This is a big order. Now, there's been a lot of discussion on the Hill, and some have said, well, we should leave right away. I interpret this as a major statement that the coalition, in fact, will remain until the country is safe and stable, and until a government is elected and able to survive. And that's good news, I think.
Bob Schieffer, if that's true and the time plan keeps going on, there are a lot of Iraqi people upset, saying already, get out now. What's the balancing equation?
Well, I think we have no choice at this point, Larry. Anybody watching these pictures that are coming in from Iraq just today, I think the United States could not leave at this point without turning the country into total chaos, because clearly there's a power vacuum there for any number of reasons. We have to stay just to keep mass hysteria from breaking out there and untold deaths. So I think we're going to be there for a while. And I would certainly agree with Senator Feinstein. This is the hard part now. It's going to be pretty difficult. That's not saying we can't do it, that we can't leave this place a better place than we found it. But I don't think we have any choice but to stay right now.
Senator Warner, why didn't he declare victory tonight?
Oh, I think very clearly my colleagues here referred to the hard part. Let us not forget that the combined death toll of Americans and forces coalition, over 200, over 500 plus wounded. So I think that was a hard part too, I say to my colleagues here. So we have to look forward to the uncertainty of the continuing need to stay there, and that is not without risks. Both the President and Secretary Rumsfeld stated that. So we're going to be there, we're going to accept the risk, and we're going to see it through until the job is done.
And how long, Senator Feinstein, do you think that might be? We are an impatient people, are we not?
We're a very impatient people, and the real test is whether we can stay the course. I believe we can. I believe we should. And I thought a lot about it, and I see us in there for the next 3 to 5 years. I would be surprised if it were less.
Bob, how do you react to that?
Well, I would certainly hope we're not going to be there for the next 3 or 5 years, but we may well be, because we don't even know at this point what kind of government can survive there, nor do even the people in this administration, are they even in agreement as to what kind of government ought to be there. I did an interview Sunday before last with Richard Pearl, who was one of the advisors to the Pentagon, very influential. He said if a theocratic government, as an Islamic republic, evolves there, we'll just have to live with that. 3 days later, I heard the Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, say we won't tolerate an Islamic republic there. So I think at this point, we don't even know what kind of government we think can survive there, or what kind of government. I don't think there's agreement within our government about what kind of government would be the right government.
Larry.
Senator Warner, yeah, go ahead, Senator.
Sure. I differ with my friends here. I don't think we can set any timetable. I would not accept this 3 to 5 years. And the use of the term we, these statements made today by both the Secretary of Defense and our President were really an invitation to other countries to come on in now and join us in the burdens, not only of reconstruction, but reforming a government that can govern this nation, and also to bring the wherewithal, the dollars to do it. So I feel that by other nations joining, and indeed the UN, not as the boss on the block, but a participant, we can cut down that timetable substantially from any 3 to 5 years.
Senator Feinstein, do they have to find chemical weaponry?
Well, that was the raison d'etre for most of this mission. And I think we have a long way to go to be sure that we've covered all the bases. And so that's going to take time. And as the President said, there are a lot of places to look. I want to make this point about time. And the reason I said that is there's an infrastructure to be rebuilt. There's an economy to be restarted. And if we are to have the kind of government that is not fanatical, it's got to be a government that understands what Western ways can provide. And that's economic upward mobility, that's education, it's good health care, it's a good economy. That takes time, and I suspect we're going to have highs and lows during this period. What I'm saying that I believe is mandatory, just as it is in Afghanistan, that we stay and we see the job done.
Right.
Just remember how long it took in Germany, in Japan, in other countries that have never known democracy.
Thank you. Thank you, Senators Warner and Feinstein. Bob Schieffer will remain with us, and when we come back, we'll meet Congressman Christopher Shays of Connecticut and Congresswoman Jane Harman of California on this shortened edition of Larry King Live following the President's speech. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Happy Mother's Day to you. Happy Mother's Day to you. Happy Mother's Day to Mommy. Happy Mother's Day to you.
Cheerios is still the only leading cold cereal clinically proven to reduce cholesterol to help your heart.
Happy Mother's Day to you.
Yeah, I take pride in my yard. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. We enjoy the fresh air, the sunshine. Of course, mosquitoes are a problem, but we manage.
Get the most out of your yard with Mosquito Magnet. This patented process silently and continuously kills mosquitoes and other biting insects. Protect your backyard with Mosquito Magnet. It's up to 50 times more effective than other traps.
Mosquito Magnet, Fatal Attraction.
No matter what you enjoy doing outside, you'll enjoy it more with Mosquito Magnet.
Today, more people with diabetes are getting to know Accu-Check Compact. The one with the drum. Automatic, so you never have to handle a test strip, even when you're in the middle of something important. Compact from Accu-Check. Diabetes made easier. Life lived better.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Martin will see you now.
Thanks. You're the CEO of a big health insurance company, right?
Yes, I am.
Do you realize that if you're in your 50s or 60s and your company doesn't cover you, it's basically impossible to get affordable health insurance?
Yes, I do.
Could you fix that?
Okay.
Great.
If one person could do it alone, the world wouldn't need AARP.
Bob Schieffer of CBS News Face the Nation and their chief Washington correspondent remains with us. We're joined by Congressman Christopher Shays of Connecticut, Republican, chairman of the Government Reform Subcommittee on National Security, and Representative Jane Harman, Democrat of California, ranking member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Chris Shays, your reaction.
Oh, this was so exciting. We were looking at 18 and 19-year-old kids. That's the average age on this ship. And on a scale of 1 to 10, our military performed at an 11. And this president had a right to rejoice, but it was just a compassionate, wonderful speech. And just finally, let me say, he referred to this as the battle in Iraq because it's the war on terrorism and it continues, and I think he was reminding us of that.
Congresswoman Harman, your thoughts.
Touching in many ways, looking at the faces of the kids and thinking about their new sons and daughters, but also sobering in some ways. The president at the end was in a sober mood at the end of the speech, talking about those who died and talking about the long road ahead. I was listening to the prior conversation about Reconstruction, Larry. I don't know what the number of years is, but if you recall, in this last 10 years, we've done 6 of these. This is number 6. And the ones where we haven't stayed long, like Somalia and Haiti, have gone badly. In fact, Afghanistan is going badly. It's good that we're committing new resources as of today. Yeah. But this will be a long haul.
Bob, are you surprised that both Democrats, both powerful Democrats tonight, Congresswoman Harman and Senator Feinstein, are very pro all of this?
Well, I think this was a remarkable moment. I mean, it really was. I mean, here you have the President of the United States, and this didn't just happen. This speech was only one part of what happened today. I mean, here you have the President flying onto the aircraft carrier, the first President to fly onto an aircraft carrier in a fixed-wing jet like he did, climbing out in that flight suit, looking very dashing. This whole day was quite an event. I mean, you know, sometimes we think about our politics being kind of sour and mean and nothing but just campaign commercials. We saw a little spontaneity today. We saw a little showmanship that we haven't seen in a long time in politics. And frankly, I think that's kind of good for the whole process.
Congressman Shays, does the coalition have to find weapons of mass destruction?
Oh, I think so, and we will. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt they exist. The question is, where are they? But we're going to find them. We're going to find them because they exist, and it's the reason why we went to Iraq, to end his ability to share these with other nations and terrorists.
Do you feel the same, Congresswoman Harman? Are you positive they're going to find them?
Well, the intelligence case that they were there was very strong. I saw it, and it's a major reason why I supported the congressional resolution. We have to find them, Larry. They were not only the moral underpinning for the war, but until we find them, there's a security risk. It may be true, it is true, as the president said, that Saddam Hussein isn't going to be able to use them, but others in Iraq may have hidden them only to unearth them later and sell them, give them, transfer them to many of these terrorist groups that are still alive and well and growing in the world. So this is a dangerous and imperative action that we have to take.
You know, I think that's a very good point that the Congresswoman makes, because as she says, all of the intelligence suggested there were such weapons. So if we don't find them, they must be someplace else, and that really does raise a security question. So I think it's absolutely imperative, as the Congresswoman says, that these weapons be found. And I must say, I think would also help the cause if we get some idea where Osama bin Laden is, and also where Saddam Hussein is, and whether he's dead or alive.
Congressman Shays, your former leader, Newt Gingrich, slammed the State Department, called it a broken instrument of diplomacy. You share those views?
Well, that's Newt at his worst, frankly. That's the last thing we need right now. We have an awesome State Department, an incredible Secretary of State, and his task is going to be the more difficult now. We are introducing democracy into this land, and infant nations think of democracy in terms of majority rule. What they have to learn is minority rights, and if they don't learn minority rights, they're not going to have a meaningful democracy, and that's going to rest on the shoulders of the State Department.
Congresswoman Harman, are you hopeful about Powell's trip to Syria?
I am hopeful. I think the timing is great, and he is the right messenger to send there. I'm hopeful that Syria will hear us and will stop supporting terrorist groups who are a great risk to neighboring Israel. By the way, I think that rolling out the roadmap is a very good thing. Building democracy is hard, as we are seeing in the fragile beginnings of Palestine. I hope one of Powell's messages to Palestine's Arab neighbors is, help remove Arafat, get him totally off the political stage so that this nascent government there has a chance to thrive. There are good people in it, and the security chief, Mohammed Dahlan, is capable of dealing with Hamas and the other terrorist groups if he's given a chance to do that. And then we may see our way clear to a peaceful situation in the Middle East for the first time, certainly in my lifetime.
Thank you, Congressman Christopher Shays of Connecticut, Congresswoman Jane Harman of California. Bob Schieffer remains with us, and when we come back, we'll get international viewpoints from Matt McAllister of Newsday, Christiane Amanpour, CNN's chief international correspondent, and Nick Robertson, our senior international correspondent. That's all next. Don't go away.
Sir William Lyons, founder of Jaguar, once said, "The car is the closest thing we will ever create to something that is alive."
CNN Tomorrow controversial diet guru Dr. Robert Atkins in one of his last interviews before his shocking death. Only on Larry King Live, CNN Tomorrow, 9 Eastern.
Sony Vaio owners are accustomed to getting a little extra attention.
Here's your coffee, sir.
Check out the Z1 notebook with Intel Centrino mobile technology, and you'll see why. Beauty and brains in one package. Exactly what you'd expect from Sony. Vaio gives you everything you need, like the V505 with a mobile Intel Pentium 4 processor M.
Can I get you some more water? I think I'm okay for now.
Call now to get Sony style and design with the V505 with the mobile Intel Pentium 4 processor M.
Is this place always so crowded?
Other sleek, powerful notebooks with Intel processors start at just $999.99. Call toll-free now and get free shipping and a free printer after mail-in rebate with the purchase of a Sony Vaio PC with an Intel processor.
Do you have diabetes, and are you on Medicare? If so, Medicare may cover the cost of your diabetes testing supplies. It doesn't matter if you use insulin or not, but you can't get your reimbursement on your own. You need an approved Medicare participating provider. You need Liberty Medical. Liberty helps hundreds of thousands of people get the benefits they deserve. Here's how it works. Liberty bills Medicare and your insurance company for you. You don't pay anything up front. Your supplies are delivered right to your door with no charge for shipping. And you never have to worry because Liberty will contact you when it's time to reorder. If you have diabetes and you're on Medicare, call Liberty to see if you qualify for their home delivery program. Liberty could make things a little easier for you. They did for me.
For more information, call Liberty today at 1-800-867-0598.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
We're back. Bob Schieffer remains with us of CBS News Face the Nation. Joining us in Baghdad is Matt McAllister, reporter for Newsday, who was imprisoned and interrogated in Iraq for a week in late March. In London is Christiane Amanpour, CNN's chief international correspondent. And in Baghdad, Nick Robertson, CNN's senior international correspondent. What's the latest, Nick, from Baghdad?
Well, Larry, I think perhaps when the people of Baghdad wake up, they may make their own assessment of what President Bush had to say overnight for them, but perhaps for the people here, it's returning to normal. There's more shops open, more people being a little bit more relaxed on the streets. What happened in Fallujah, about 30 or 40 miles west of Baghdad, perhaps of interest to a lot of people as well. The fact that there's still a contentious situation between U.S. troops and some of the residents of the city there. U.S. troops coming under attack from some of the residents there in their base. But for the most part, the people here in Baghdad are beginning to relax more on the streets here, and there is beginning to be some small sense of normality returning to this place, a little more electricity and such like.
Christiane Amanpour, as the president continues to mingle with the sailors returning home, what has been the reaction? Well, I guess a little late there in London. What's your reaction to his speech?
Well, let's just talk about what the reaction overseas has been in the days leading up to this speech. There's still a great deal of skepticism on two issues from countries all around the world. Those are the weapons of mass destruction, which, despite what President Bush and Prime Minister Blair say, have not yet been found. Also, the alleged link to Al-Qaeda, the other justification of the war. There's still a great deal of skepticism by many of the countries abroad. But I think on two major issues, people will be looking at two things that the president said. One, the fact that he says that they will stay in Iraq until the job is done, and he drew comparisons to Afghanistan. Well, as your previous guest, Congressman Hartman, said, the job in Afghanistan is not over, and in fact, it's not going well. And so that is a sobering lesson and a sobering example as you look towards reconstruction and the imposition of security in Iraq. And then a second thing which he said, the president, which will cause alarm, I believe, is that any government, any outlaw, any rogue state supporting terrorism or having anything to do with potential weapons of mass destruction, quote, we will confront them. And I think that is the overriding concern, certainly in the Arab world. Is there going to be a domino rollover effect? Will there be other countries that are invaded, attacked by the United States? And precisely what does that line in that speech mean? We will confront them. What does that mean? Iran, Syria, who, what, and how?
Matt McAllister, what do you think will be the reaction in Baghdad as it learns the contents of this speech?
I think it'll be mixed. I think there is a sense among some people in Baghdad of growing hostility to the United States at the moment. Today, for example, there was an explosion, an apparently innocent explosion at a gas station, but immediately a crowd gathered and started jostling the American soldiers, blaming the American soldiers for what had happened, even though they hadn't been present at the time. And it seems to me that whenever there's an incident like that, people's anger comes out and they're directed at what they see, some of them, as their occupiers, even if they're beneficent occupiers in many senses. So there is that growing feeling. But on the other hand, they, as Nick said, many of them, probably the majority of them, at least in Baghdad, feel liberated and like their lives have significantly improved in spite of the relative chaos here. So I think they'll see the speech with a degree of passivity. It's not really to do with them anymore, but what they will feel is that reconstruction has to start much faster than it is happening now.
Bob Schieffer, is Christiane right, though? Will reaction overseas not be the same as it is in the United States?
Yes, I think she's right, and I think the part of this speech, I think she's also right in the sense that the part of this speech that will be most pored over, most dissected, will be the president's quote that, you know, any outlaw regime that has ties to terrorist groups will be confronting. I think that's the thing that will raise questions overseas. But I also believe that the purpose of this speech was not so much, the audience for this speech was not the rest of the world. The audience for this speech, it seems to me, were the people back home in the United States. This was the president identifying with what he calls a success, thanking these young men and women who did their duty, who followed presidential orders and carried out this very difficult task. I think this was a speech, Larry, for the American people, not for people in other parts of the world.
Any word, Nick Robertson, any rumors about Saddam Hussein?
Still nothing concrete. The rumors in Baghdad are that he might come back. We were talking to some Iraqi scientists earlier on today, and they were saying in their neighborhoods they're seeing slogans appearing on their walls saying that the Ba'ath Party, Saddam Hussein's former political party here, are still watching them. They think about whether or not they should go and talk to the United States, tell them everything they know about the past weapons of mass destruction programs, and they see these slogans appearing on the wall from the Ba'ath Party. We're watching you. Don't go and talk to them. So there's certainly a feeling here that while Saddam Hussein, nobody knows where he is, some of his former party members are still around. They haven't gone away, and even some of them want to try and find positions in any new government that may be formed.
What did you make, Christiane, of Senator Feinstein and others saying that this might take 3 to 5 years for the United States to be in Iraq?
Well, just look around at what's happened in the world over the last 10 years. Bosnia, Kosovo. I mean, look, American troops first came to Bosnia at the end of 1995, at the end of that war, and they're still there. That's 8 years. Bosnia is pocket handkerchief size compared to Iraq, and the problems of reconstruction and rebuilding civil institutions, not to mention just physical reconstruction there, are huge. And I think it's fanciful to suggest that it could take any short period of time to get the job done. And I think that many commentators have suggested that you have to strike a right balance to give the confidence that you're staying to do the job, as well as giving the confidence that you're not there just as heavy-handed occupiers. And I think, you know, certainly when it came to Afghanistan, a great deal of what I would call sort of false canards were raised for not doing the job. For instance, not putting peacekeepers beyond Afghanistan outside of Kabul. The reasons that the administration gave was that we don't want to be seen as occupiers, misreading the Afghan people who wanted the security of peacekeepers to be around Afghanistan to show them that once and for all the power of the warlords was over and a new force was in town. And because that hasn't happened, the security of Afghanistan is still on the brink of catastrophe. You know that by the engagements that U.S. military has had over and over and over again, even in the last few days. Yeah. And so when people look at the future of Iraq, they look at the recent examples and they hope that the administration will keep its commitment to actually rebuilding and reconstructing all sorts of civil institutions and also the physical infrastructure.
We thank you all very much. Bob Schieffer, thanks for pinch hitting last week. You were terrific, and thanks for being with us tonight. And Matt McAllister and Christian Amanpour, Nick Robertson, and our earlier guests as well. We'll take a break, and I'll come back and tell you about what's ahead, not only tomorrow night, but over the weekend and next Monday night as well on Larry King Live. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Today, more people with diabetes are getting to know Accu-Check Compact. The one with the drum. Automatic, so you never have to handle a test strip, even when you're in the middle of something important. Compact from Accu-Check. Diabetes made easier. Life lived better.
Introducing New America Online 8.0. With hundreds of new features, there's never been a better time to try it.
America Online has so much more.
You've got mail.
With 8.0, I can customize my email.
You can pick what emails you want to see first in your mailbox.
With AOL's new parental controls, I can set up for each one of my children.
I can control when and how long they stay online.
Call now and get 1,025 free hours for 45 days and hundreds of new features.
Searching is quick and easy.
Now AOL searches are faster than ever with Google.
I can sign up to AOL from home or on the road.
There are more access numbers than ever.
The customer service is free and it's 24 hours a day.
They're friendly, they're responsive.
Call 1-800-901-9795 now and get started right over the phone with 1,025 free hours for 45 days. There's no commitment and you don't even need a credit card.
It's an AOL like you've never seen before.
New AOL 8.0 with hundreds of new features. There's never been a better time to try it.
Tomorrow on American Morning, President Bush on board the USS Abraham Lincoln. I'm Bill Hemmer. An end to combat in Iraq, but more important could be the things left unsaid. What was spoken and not spoken. CNN tomorrow, 7 a.m. Eastern.
Closed captioning provided by Jennifer Convertibles.
From Jennifer Convertibles, a designer sofa bed for just $2.99. With a Jennifer sofa bed, there's always a place to stay.
Tomorrow night, more on the Peterson case. Will Garagos say yes or no? We should know by tomorrow. Saturday night, Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore together again. Sunday night, a big program we're calling Girl Talk. And on Monday night, Lisa Marie Presley. All ahead on Larry King Live. Ahead now is Aaron Brown with Newsnight, preceded by Charles Molyneux with the news headlines. Thanks for joining us, and good night.
And thanks, Larry. I'm Charles Molyneux in the CNN newsroom. Here's what's happening at this hour. It was a dramatic setting for a historic speech. President Bush spoke to the nation tonight from the deck of the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. The president declared an end to combat in Iraq and promised to reconstruct a free Iraq. We'll have more on the president's speech straight ahead on Newsnight. We have word of a major breakthrough in the aftermath of a deadly earthquake in Turkey. 7 boys have been found alive and saved from the wreckage of a collapsed dormitory. Rescuers have been frantically digging to find as many as 70 children still buried in the rubble of the building. At least 100 people were killed and another 1,000 were hurt when the tremor hit the town of Bengal. A wide-ranging fraud indictment has snagged 9 former Enron officials, including Chief Financial